Welcome everyone to Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gill Gross. So much to get to this week. Madrid Preview, French Open Power Rankings, and two young players breaking out with their maiden ATP titles last week, Sebastian Baez in Estoril and Holger Rune in Munich. I want to talk about both of those guys because they certainly deserve it. All right, French Open Power Rankings. Right off the bat, again, Estoril and Munich. There's a bit of movement. Nothing at the top. Okay. I will start by showing you April 24th. These were the power rankings. Alcaraz at number 3 moved up, and Ruud moved down 1, and Rublev leapfrogged him. Schwartzman moved up 1, and Pablo Carreño Busta got added to the next out. Okay. And now it is May 1st, everybody. Roland Garros month. And we do have some changes. Sinner and Rublev move up over Zverev, who drops down to number 6 after his loss to Holger Rune. It's not just that he lost. He put in a terrible performance. I called the match on Tennis Channel. It was great. I enjoyed it a lot. I'll get into it a little bit more later, but Zverev couldn't hit a forehand. So that was that. And now kind of, we had a semifinal in Monte Carlo, but these performances are just adding up. And now he's defending champion in Madrid. So he definitely has a chance, a very good chance, that number 6 is the lowest he'll ever get in this. But he does need to turn things around and start showing us something, because he also lost to Tsitsipas very comprehensively. And as a result, he didn't go anywhere in the power rankings. You're not penalized for losing to someone really above you in the rankings, generally speaking. Now he's losing to someone who's not even on here in Holger Rune, and he's getting crushed. So he moves down 2 spots. Schwartzman also passes Casper Ruud. Ruud takes a loss to Botic van de Zanschculp. He also struggled against Alex Molcan in round 1. The streak ends of clay 250s. He had won 5 in a row. Buenos Aires this year, and 4 of them last year in the second half, starting with Geneva. Something looks a little off. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's up, but something looks wrong. So he moves down 1 spot. Miomir Kecmanovic. It shouldn't say +1. It should just say plus. Kecmanovic moves from the next out spot to number 9. Look, the week-to-week consistency is undeniable. He has now made quarterfinals in 6 straight events, and now finally he's won one of the quarterfinals. He kept losing in that stage, but he makes the semifinal. He plays a good, long, hard match against Botic, who just looked fantastic this week. If he... he's not on the rankings here, and he's not in the next out, but he's really knocking on the door. Not enough players played this week, so I didn't want to, it's not fair to really take players out when they don't even play. But Botic was really, really great this week. Cam Norrie moves down 1 spot. Kecmanovic leapfrogs him at number 9. All right, that's it. If you have not been watching every week, please know that Rafael Nadal will be in the French Open Power Rankings next edition. He's just got to play first. He's about to play, and then he'll be added to the rankings. Berrettini and Medvedev, not so sure we'll see him. We may never see him. And that is that. So, Madrid Preview coming up in a moment after a shout-out to PlayYourCourt, the place to go if you're looking for a local coach, practice partner, or match. The number one reason people stop playing tennis is because they can't find anyone to play with. I don't want that to happen to you, so I have arranged a special discount to join the PlayYourCourt community. 50% off, playyourcourt.com/GillGross. Link is in the description. Let me talk about Madrid real quick. You know my spiel if you watched last year. Not really a clay court. I mean, it is. It is a clay court in the sense that consistency and defense will be rewarded in baseline rallies. It's difficult to control the ball. It's still clay court movement. If you can be very consistent, if you can defend a lot and move well and keep the ball in the court, it's similar to a clay court in the sense that that will play a role in Madrid. You can defend. It's not like Wimbledon where it's like, okay, great job. You're going to try to grind. Good luck with that. It's not like that. However, it is an altitude. The air is very thin, over 2,000 feet of altitude. The architecture of the stadium keeps all the elements out, so it has a very indoorsy feel. And between the altitude and the still conditions, people just love serving there. And the serve numbers are always very good. High ace rates, high first serve 1%. John Isner likes it there, as we'll get to. The final last year was Berrettini and Zverev. It was Sabalenka Barty on the women's side. This is a servers tournament, and clay is usually not that. And this is that. So it's quite a bit different. And I also think it rewards, flatter hitters a little bit more than usual in terms of just how the, I don't know, I think thinner air, topspin doesn't really bring down the ball quite as well. And Nadal has never enjoyed this tournament compared to the other clay tournaments, as another aside. So I'm really looking for players who can serve big, but can also play a grinding, consistent clay court game, if that makes sense. Let's go to the quarter-by-quarter preview. If you're new to the channel, I will give you a dark horse. That is an unseeded player who I think has a chance to go deep. I will give you an upset alert. That is a seeded player who I think might lose early. I will give you an early popcorn match. That is a match that I do not think you should miss in round 1. Sometimes round 2, but I think I stuck to round 1s in this. I will, of course, give you also a quarterfinal prediction. Novak Djokovic is the top seed. In his quarter is Casper Ruud, Hubert Hurkacz, and Denis Shapovalov. My dark horse in this quarter is Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. There were some options here. There are plenty of big names, from Gael Monfils to Andy Murray and Dominic Thiem to, that's about it, Borna Coric, who's been a dark horse recently. But I feel like Davidovich Fokina, being the showman that he is, being a player who is riding a wave of confidence, who lost a great, epic match to Tiafoe in Estoril, but I don't really put much stock into that. I think that he is the best option among the unseeded players to go deep. On upset alert is Denis Shapovalov. I'm concerned about Denis Shapovalov. He's been inactive. I can't really figure out why. It's one thing if you're having a lot of success and you want to rest, you want to take a break. And I understand some of the North American players do this, but many of them at least played Houston. It's another thing when you're really struggling and you don't go deep at Indian Wells and you don't go deep in Miami, and then you don't show up until Madrid. It's strange to me. Now, he is starting to work with Jamie Delgado, new coach. Maybe they wanted a training block together. That's the positive way of spinning it. I don't know that I'm there. I don't feel like he's very eager to have success on clay. That's not the sense I get, because he's not really putting in the work to play these clay court events. It was kind of weird that he didn't play Roland Garros last year. Not going to lie. Kind of weird. It worked out for him, right? He made the semis at Wimbledon. So I don't know. I just don't know what's going on with Shapo. He's my upset alert. Early popcorn, very, very easy. Andy Murray versus Dominic Thiem in round 1. This is like look, if I were Dana White, okay, and that's how tennis worked, Dana White, the president of the UFC, has a role in deciding who fights each other. If I were Dana White, I might make this match. If that's how this worked, I might do it. It's just kind of perfect. They're both teams on the comeback trail. He's still looking for his first win of 2022. Andy hasn't been able to really make a run this year, right? I feel like he hasn't. It's been a struggle for him. Obviously, both have had history with injuries for Murray. He's actually been able to stay healthy for a while, but it's just he wasn't even expecting to play clay. So it's kind of it's just an interesting match. It's just an interesting match. I favor Murray slightly. I do. Let me get to the quarterfinal. I will talk about Djokovic and Ruud and Hurkacz after, but let's reveal it. Okay, Djokovic defeats Hubert Hurkacz. I think that Novak has, first of all, a really good section. Whether he plays Monfils, he's got Shapovalov and Humbert and Murray and team. That's a quality draw for Djokovic, in my opinion. Monfils 17-0 against Gill Monfils. I mean, come on. As for Ruud versus Hurkacz, and as much as, I make Alejandro Davidovich Fokina a dark horse, I really didn't consider him moving him through. Look, this is a pick where I feel like something's wrong with Ruud, and I don't know what it is. He just looks off. And Hurkacz on clay, I mean, he was 1-4 on clay last year. He doesn't play well on clay, but again, this isn't really traditional clay. And I actually didn't think Hurkacz was that impressive in Monte Carlo. Still went pretty deep and picked up a couple of victories and beat some good clay quarters. And he did that just by serving that well. Serving so darn well in Monte Carlo that he was able to basically serve his way through to, I believe, the quarterfinals. If he can do that in Monte Carlo, he can certainly do that in Madrid, where players have tons of success with their serve. Simple as that. But for Djokovic, I think that would be a great matchup. We know how Djokovic's return is going to frustrate anyone who expects to ride the coattails of their big first serve. Djokovic's return looked really, really good in Belgrade for the most part as well. That was not the problem in any of his matches. So I do think it would be a good chance for Djokovic to obviously get returns in play, break down the Hurkacz forehand. So I move through Djokovic, and with that, let's move to Rafael Nadal's quarter. Nadal has Alcaraz, Norrie, and Carreño Busta. This is obviously, there is an argument to be made that the three favorites in Madrid, and I'm not saying I subscribe to this argument, but there's a good argument to be made that the top three favorites are all in the top half of this draw, in no particular order: Nadal, Djokovic, and Alcaraz. So just throwing that out there. I don't agree with that, actually, but you could say that. My dark horse in this quarter, I have two of them: John Isner and Miomir Kecmanovic. Again, Kecmanovic just undeniably at a top 20 level week in and week out these days. And the clay, I think with the way he returns, the clay is a surface that does suit him. But I do think he's going to be an all-surface player the way he's going. But, never an easy out. Will there be fatigue? Will there be a letdown at some point? Can he continue to make the quarterfinal every single week? I don't know. But Kecmanovic at this point, he's an automatic dark horse if he's not seeded. And by the way, his ranking just moved into Roland Garros seeding. He's now, I believe, 32 in the world. So that's big for him. And Isner, again, just really enjoys these conditions because of how well his serve works. Now, Isner's body, it might be breaking down on him here in 2022. You knew it was going to happen at some point, and it might be now. So this is the kind of tournament where you keep an eye on Isner. We're beginning, he already won his first round match. I think he played Krajinovic. If he continues to suffer from subpar results at tournaments like this, we'll know something's really wrong. And we know that we'll know at that point that Isner might be closer to the finish line than we may have thought, or it may have looked like last year. I don't have anyone on upset alert. I do think that all of these seeds are solid. I don't know that Cam Norrie or Pablo Carreño Busta, as we've seen with the way Alcaraz has played both Norrie and Carreño Busta, the way that Nadal has played both Norrie and Carreño Busta. I think if you combined their head-to-head, it would be carnage. It would be Nadal and Alcaraz completely eating up Carreño Busta and Norrie. I know that for a fact with a lot of those head-to-heads. So, they don't have the weaponry or the firepower to challenge the top 2 seeds in this quarter. But I also think that they are very, very solid, consistent players who are unlikely to really suffer an upset at any point here. Now, I will say Nadal's first match could be Kecmanovic. And, that doesn't bode well for Rafa Nadal. It's just not ideal. Kecmanovic is just playing that well. He takes his backhand early on the rise extremely well. He can control points off of that side. And he's going to ask a lot of Nadal in that matchup unless there's fatigue, unless there's a letdown. But definitely not the ideal start for Nadal. I want to throw that out there. So my quarterfinal is Alcaraz defeats Nadal. Now, let me talk about Nadal in general. I think he can hit the ground running. This is another example, and I think I talked about this last week, where I was in a situation, I guess it was with, maybe not, but it's another situation where Alcaraz kind of messes up the draw, right? Like in Miami, my top 2 contenders, now one of these turned out to be wrong, it was Felix, I'll get to him later, was Felix and Alcaraz. That was my top 2 in Miami. And that's kind of how I approach these things. Usually I kind of build myself like a little bit of a power ranking, but more so, a more subjective power ranking, what I'm feeling. But they met in the quarterfinals, so I had to have one lose in the quarters. This is kind of a similar situation, sort of, where, I did not expect, I'm high on Nadal, is all I want to say. Given how things have looked in 2022, amazing, undefeated until the Indian Wells final. And I just don't think he's missed enough time for us to be really concerned. A lot of players haven't played since really Indian Wells, Miami. And it's not enough time where I don't think Russ is going to play a factor. I think he's going to hit the ground running. However, this pick is more about Madrid and momentum and confidence with Alcaraz, and the fact that I think about Nadal's loss to Dominic Thiem recently in Madrid. I think about Nadal's loss to Stefanos Tsitsipas a couple years back in Madrid, and I'm seeing those matches, and it's the same thing. It's players who are being ultra aggressive on their forehand with massive power. And for some reason, this court for Nadal, it starts to look like he's playing indoors and he gets pushed around. He gets bullied a little bit by these guys with massive forehands. So I'm just seeing those matches in my head. I believe both of those were quarterfinals. I'm looking at another quarterfinal against Alcaraz where Nadal is coming off a layoff. And yeah, I go with Carlos here. That's kind of mostly the logic. Oh, I didn't get to the early popcorn. PCB versus BVDZ. Did I just want to say a lot of letters? Yes, partially. But that's a top 20 matchup. If my power rankings extended to 20, both of those guys would be in there. I assure you. I want to get to Botic later. I want to just give him a little shout out. He's playing great. I have some thoughts. And Carreño Busta has really figured out how to play on clay. He's playing really well. All of his losses are quality losses. He doesn't lose to players who are lesser than him. Pulled out a nice win against Ruud a couple weeks ago too. So that's a great first round matchup. Don't miss that one. Let's go to the bottom half now. Stefanos Tsitsipas is the 4 seed. Top seeds are him, Rublev, Schwartzman, and Bautista Agut. Really strong quarter again. My dark horse in this quarter is Jenson Brooksby. I'm really not thrilled about this. You know, my take on Brooksby, and he hasn't been active since Houston, and he lost first round in Houston. Do I think clay is going to be his best surface? Not really. I do think that, again, like I'm not thrilled about Brooksby. I don't know what to expect, but of the names here, he's kind of the guy. And I thought about Dimitrov. I did. He plays Cressy, though, who qualified in the first round, and Cressy's starting to build up some confidence. That's, I would say maybe 60% Dimitrov wins. I think Cressy has a good chance there. But, he was the name I went with in a section that just does not have a lot of unseeded players that intrigue me, from Karen Khachanov and Lucas Pouille to Benoit Paire, Delbonis, and Dan Evans. I mean, I don't know where to go there. And to me, Brooksby, who's still kind of a wild card, still an unknown factor. We don't have a lot of sample size of him on clay. It's obviously going to be interesting to see how the thin air suits him or doesn't suit him. He's got a great set of lungs on him. We know that. He does very well to control the ball, and I doubt that he's going to have a lot of trouble keeping the ball on the court in altitude, which can sometimes be a real strength. Obviously, he doesn't have the serve and the offensive game that some players are able to benefit from in Madrid. Diego Schwartzman is terrible at this tournament. Year after year after year, he has never done anything. He is not good. It is, again, an example, I think, of a player who gets pushed around, and he doesn't benefit from the serve, and for whatever reason, he's uncomfortable in these conditions. He's on upset alert. Early popcorn, RBA versus Brooksby, round 1. They keep playing, don't they? Brooksby and RBA. And I believe Brooksby has his number. Let me just double check. Oh, no, they've only played once, and it was a great match. It was in Miami. Brooksby won in a great three-setter, 6-4 in the third. Okay, that confirms my early popcorn pick, because it was a great match last time, and maybe it'll be a great match this time. I feel good once again about the top seeds in this one. My quarterfinal is Tsitsipas defeats Rublev. Rublev can play Tsitsipas in quick conditions. He can rush the backhand, he can attack the backhand, and he can have success here. I just think the second serve discrepancy is so vast right now that I do think Tsitsipas can take advantage of that, and I think it does give him a leg up on Rublev. But this is a tough one for me. I think Rublev is easily a top 5. I don't know if it's 5 or 6, but a 5th or 6th favorite here. One that I'm high on. I think he should like these conditions. I expect Rublev at some point in his career to do well in Madrid. I know he lost to Isner last year. It was pretty bad luck. He outplayed John, and Isner just won every big point and tiebreak. So that was that. But I go with Tsitsipas here narrowly. The ability for Tsitsipas to protect his backhand, it's still accentuated on the clay. And that's going to be a big deal against Rublev in that matchup. So that, and really the second serve discrepancy. Let us go to Zverev's quarter, the number 2 seed. And this is the quarter where you're probably thinking, look, Djokovic's quarter is kind of weak, especially if something's going on with Ruud. And this quarter is weak. But this quarter is weaker because there's really no one who you feel great about here. Zverev is not playing well. Madrid is a tournament that Zverev's won twice, and I think before Zverev retires, I think he's going to win it 4 or 5 times. The conditions are perfect for him. It is exactly how I would design a court for Zverev. I would put it in altitude so his serve is bigger. I would cover it up so that, the elements don't get in the way of again, his serve and how well he can serve. But I would make it clay so that he can grind, so that he can defend and be, and win on his defense from the baseline. And that's what this court is. It's perfect for Zverev. But if he's going to be a wreck mentally, then, and if he can't hit a forehand, then he's not going to go anywhere here. Now, it would be very Zverev-like to win this tournament. So I won't give it away. I haven't revealed the quarterfinal. FAA is just struggling immensely right now. We know that. And Sinner, I always worry about Italians in Madrid. Rome is next week. Berrettini did a great job last year, but in general, if you look at a lot of Italians, this is their worst clay, because it's difficult to really give the attention that this tournament deserves when the biggest tournament of the year for them is next week. And Sinner doesn't have the serve that can help him out here. Opelka's Opelka, he's the 15 seed, and I won't give away too much. My dark horse here is Sebastian Korda and Marin Cilic. Korda playing good offensive and aggressive tennis. He's been very inconsistent, but he did look really good in Estoril. Marin Cilic is a player who is pretty much a non-factor at all clay court tournaments except this one. He, at this stage in his career at least, he did make the quarterfinal last time he played here, for what it's worth, and he looks fine. Cilic still looks fine. He's not really in a steep decline right now, to my eyes. I think he's, maintaining a borderline top 30 level, but a top 30 level that can be very kind of, I guess, high at its peak, meaning when everything is kind of working for him, he can be a real difficult player to deal with. Early popcorn here is Jannik Sinner versus Tommy Paul. I love this match. I love Tommy Paul. I think he's got a great entertainment value there, and I think he can play a good match with Sinner. And Opelka versus Korda, next-gen American battle, and 50-50 match there. That's a really tough one to call between Opelka and Korda. And I think that uncertainty really adds to the early popcorn factor. Not to mention, this quarter is so open. It's not like Opelka and Korda are playing and they're in Nadal, Alcaraz, or Djokovic, or Tsitsipas, or Rublev even. It's not even like they're in that kind of section. They're in, let me see. They are in Zverev section, and you just don't know about Zverev right now. So, you feel like, oh, I'm sorry, they're in FAA, even more so. FAA, I'm even lower on FAA at this tournament than I would be regularly. So yeah, there's intrigue there for me. As far as the quarterfinal is concerned, let me get to it here. Let me reveal it. Opelka defeats Sinner. Look, I thought about putting Zverev through. I did. But I'm trying not to be chalky. I have chalk pretty much up and down, except for Alcaraz beating Nadal, which is not a bold pick. It's not. I didn't want to be chalky. I don't know what's going... Zverev's so hard to predict. Again, for all I know, he wins the tournament. FAA should play better here. It's at altitude. He's got a great first serve. But do you know what the last couple weeks have revealed for Felix? It's revealed that the issues run deeper for Felix right now than just the slower clay conditions. That's obvious to me at this point. It wasn't obvious. Now it's obvious. I think he's struggling mentally because he finally won a title. That's my only explanation here. I think there's been a bit of a letdown because he's had this thing that has kind of defined his career, unfortunately, for a couple of years now, and he's triumphed and he's moved past it. And other than FAA making the final the very next week in Rotterdam, other than that, all of the evidence points to the fact that he has had an emotional dip as a result of finally getting that title. So even though the conditions suit FAA better here in Madrid, I'm not going to put him through. And I'm not going to be, I have Sinner instead. And I feel decent about that. So yeah, I'm going to take a shot on Opelka. I don't feel amazingly confident about it, but it kind of fits the Madrid thing that I'm going for. I think, again, the serving is the obvious thing with Opelka. I think big servers have a great chance here. And he does a good job staying in baseline rallies. He can hang in there. And he's fine on clay. And he's made 2 Masters semifinals last year. He made one in Rome, which I think was a little bit fluky. And he made one in Canada. So these tend to be the tournaments that he locks in on most. I think best of 5 can get a little bit arduous for him. I think it gets a little bit long and physical. And I think some of the smaller tournaments, I think he gets bored. He's not someone who really is all there all the time. So I feel like the Masters have been his best hunting ground. All these things combined, I like to take a dart and take a shot on Opelka to the semis. Let us reveal now the final weekend in 3, 2, 1. Djokovic defeats Alcaraz in 3 sets. Tsitsipas defeats Opelka in 3 sets. Tsitsipas defeats Djokovic in 3 sets. I think that I don't want to break down these matchups too much technically. I feel good about Djokovic coming in here. You know, every year except 2018 when he was just not a good player in 2018 at this time. Every year since 2018, he's done better at Madrid than he did in Monte Carlo. I thought we saw tons of positive signs last week in Belgrade. I think he's going to be fit, and he has the, I do think he has that pedigree defensively and in trading that I'm fascinated, to see this Djokovic-Alcaraz matchup, but I think he can force Alcaraz into playing one of those matches where he is overhitting into unforced errors. Tsitsipas defeats Opelka. Look, that's a bad matchup for Steph. I mean, that's difficult for him. He might have some returning issues in this tournament in altitude like this. That's the one thing that concerns me about Tsitsipas here, but I'm just not really going to pick Opelka to beat him. Tsitsipas is a better player on clay. So I'm going to go with 3 sets, and I'll move through Steph, assuming that he figures out a way there. Then Tsitsipas defeats Djokovic. I feel like there's less uncertainty with Tsitsipas. He's playing better serve +1 tennis than Djokovic. That's the one thing that I have not seen from Novak yet. And if I saw this in Belgrade, maybe I would pick Novak to win, but I haven't seen it. Good, aggressive, A+ first serving from Djokovic. Haven't seen it yet. Shortening points, using his forehand for consistent early aggression effectively. Haven't seen that from Djokovic. I've seen it plenty from Tsitsipas. That's the deal breaker for me, and I believe Tsitsipas wins Madrid for the first time. For what it's worth, he made the final 2 years ago. He beat Nadal. Made the final 2 years ago and lost to Djokovic. He lost last year in round 3, but he lost to Ruud. Not terrible. Lost to Ruud. So I think there's enough results to kind of, for me to be confident in Tsitsipas's comfort here in Madrid. I don't love that I'm picking him to win back-to-back Masters 1000, but you know what? As a clay court player, he's there. He's ready to do that kind of thing. That's not easy to do, but he can do that now. And, yeah. Tsitsipas over Djokovic. Hopefully my luck turns around. I mentioned what happened in Miami. I picked FAA to win, and Alcaraz was my second choice. And Alcaraz won, and FAA lost first round. And then in Monte Carlo, I picked Alcaraz to win, and Tsitsipas was my second, which is why I had the Alcaraz-Tsitsipas final. In this case, they weren't in the same quarter. Alcaraz lost first round, Tsitsipas won. So predictions, to me, I've had some bad luck here with my champions because I've been close and I've been way off. Hopefully that turns around here. Let's get to Holger Rune. Holger Rune, 19 years old, former junior #1, Roland Garros champion, talks a big game. Backing from the Muratoglu Academy. Lots of hype. And very, very solid results in last year on the lower levels. Not so much on tour level. In fact, he had not been great tour level. He's gotten a lot of help from wildcards. That's drawn some criticism. A lot of people heard about him for the first time because he said the F word, the homophobic one, during a challenger event. And that was a very unfortunate way for a lot of people to be introduced to Holger Rune. There are a lot of parts of his personality that seem really positive, that mistake aside. By the way, his apology wasn't great. Didn't help his cause. It was a little bit defensive. But yeah, this was kind of his breakthrough. This man is really, really good at a lot of things, is what I'll say, to just evaluate him off the bat. Kind of reminds me of Novak Djokovic in that way. I can talk for a really long time about things he's good at. How's his shot selection? Really good, really disciplined and smart, tactical. How's his attitude? I love his attitude. He seems to really enjoy competing, and he has very lofty goals for himself, and he seems to put the work in, and he's engaged on the match court, which is great. How's his forehand? Is it a weapon? Is it big? Yes, it absolutely is. Great racket speed, can totally do damage with it. It's not too loopy. It's not too flat. It's a thing of beauty, really. Is his backhand attackable? No, not really. You can't really break it down. Going there is not really a way to beat Holger Rune. It's not going to be like a world-class best backhand in the world type thing, but it's also solid enough that it's going to really do its job pretty well. His movement, it's good. It's explosive. His serve is kind of not great. You know, it doesn't do a lot of damage. So he's another one of these young players who doesn't do a lot of damage on his serve. But how is his feel? Really good. Drop shots are great. Volleys are good. Seems like one of those like really well-coached players. Just well-developed, great resources. Everyone who built his game from day one knew exactly what they were doing. Kind of like Alcaraz. Now, he does not have the genetic lottery athleticism that Alcaraz has. Not even close. So that's going to be a big difference. But you check a lot of boxes with Rune. A ton. And I guess, like, how do I interpret his title? I'm happy for him. I like him as a prospect. It's extremely well-deserved. However, I don't know that he's ready to really do this again anytime soon at the moment. Because the problem with Rune's game right now is his physicality, is his endurance. He says that he has talked to a lot of specialists and that he just brought a physiotherapist onto his team. But I have never seen a player so held back by a tendency to cramp and break down physically. Djokovic at the US Open last year. Australian Open against Taro Daniel this year. Most of the biggest matches in his pro career, he's had cramping issues. And that's how it's ended. Against Ruud in Monte Carlo, he was cramping at the end of the second set. It's the second set. It's incredibly consistent how often the cramping has become a problem for him. And I also think his cardio is an issue. I think he's breathing too heavy. And that's hurting him. And he doesn't have a damaging serve. So he's not going to be able to shorten points. He's kind of a grinder. He's a good grinder, but he's going to have to play long rallies, and he doesn't have the physicality to do it. He wins this week crushing everyone. He beats Yuri Lehechka 7-6, 6-3. He beats Zverev 6-3, 6-2. He beats Rusevori 6-love, 6-2. Otta 6-4, 6-4. Plays 7 games in the final today against Van de Zanschculp because Botic unfortunately had to retire. What was the longest match here? Longest match was an hour 37 in round 1. The second longest match was an hour 28. He crushed everyone. That is kind of how he needs to win right now. That's a problem. We all know that was kind of, a lightning in a bottle run, and he's not good enough to do that consistently or, anytime soon once again. He's going to need to be able at the pro level to be physical with these guys. He's 19. It's fine. He'll be fine. I think he'll figure it out. The cramp thing is concerning, and it's something to monitor, but he's got so much time. And it's not a long-term concern, but in the short term, I do think there's going to be growing pains here. And I thought that this week, again, he crushed everyone. That's how he needs to play because he can't hang physically right now. Against Zverev, he played an incredible tactical match. The drop shots. He just killed Zverev with the drop shots. You bring him forward, you attack his deep court positioning, you challenge his volleys, you challenge his ability to play well with continental grip in tight, close to the net in the forecourt, which he wasn't very good at in this match. It's just a great strategy. It worked so well, and he did it so consistently. He made Zverev beat him with his forehand, and the return was awesome. Zverev's first serve was not working against Rune at all. Zverev didn't serve great, wasn't really hitting his spots, but nonetheless, that's a huge first serve, and Rune deserves so much credit. All that is great. So that's awesome, but at the end of the first set, he was serving for it. It was 5-3. They played a long rally at deuce. Rune won the rally. Rune had to take a time penalty on purpose because he was so out of breath. Wasn't ready to serve, had to take it on purpose. Proceeded to hit with horrible shot selection the next 2 points because he had no gas. Break point, Rune was able to save it. He had his wind back because I think he serve and volleyed and then hit a first ball backhand down the line that missed. So he played 2 really short points, got his breath back, and ended up holding to win the first set 6-3. But they almost got back on serve in the first set. Who knows what happens from there? And it was literally Rune's lungs just killing him. He just needs to take that next step physically. Everything else I love about him. Everything else. And the fact that he's 19 and I can say that's pretty great. Pretty great. As for Sebastian Baez, I guess, before I move on from Munich, let me just say, Botic Van de Zanschculp, I wasn't sure. The clay court sample size was tiny, and I wasn't sure what we were going to get from him. Let me just say a couple things. First of all, he scrambles and moves so much better than it looks, or that he looks. He does not look like a professional athlete, really. He does not look fast. He is fast. He's so darn fast. His legs don't look strong, really. His upper body doesn't look strong. Nothing about him looks like a fast guy. He is. He's just super fast. Plays great defense. His court coverage is awesome. His backhand, he rarely misses his backhand. It's just a tremendous shield. He trades it and defends on it extremely well. And what I wasn't sure about was his forehand, the pace generation on his forehand. And I did not know on clay, was that good enough for Botic to be a really good player on clay? He answered the question for me, yes. He answered the question this week. He can generate pace very, very well on clay, or well enough on clay to attack with his forehand, to do damage with his forehand. I wasn't sure about that. And, he just answered that question this week. In fact, he's got a pretty long swing path. The clay might really help him to give him that extra time. and to actually accentuate his game between the defense that he can play. And look, his serve's not good. Technically speaking, it's bad. The results are not any better. And I think Clay, it's looking like it should be his best surface, all things considered. Between his defense and scrambling, the fact that he can get away with the weaker serve by breaking serve a lot, by getting a lot of returns in play, right? And the fact that, his forehand, it's pretty long. I think it can be rushed, but when it has time, he can certainly do damage on it. It's very precise, and he's got enough racket speed. He's got enough pop. Botic was for real this week. For real. Good signs from him. And in the final, if you missed it, he had some chest pains and had to retire. So very unfortunate, but hopefully he's better for Madrid. He said 30 minutes after he was fine, but just one of those freak things. Let's talk about Sebastian Baez now and get out of here. Baez, look, I think 6 challenger titles last year. Let me fact check myself. I believe 6. Let's see. He won in Santiago. He won in Buenos Aires. He won in Campinas. He won in Santiago again, and he won in Zagreb. 6, my friends, all on clay. It's translating. It's translating to tour level. He is 15-11 on the tour this year. He had a great run in Santiago, the non-challenger version. He made the final there, lost to Pedro Martinez. And I just want to talk about, okay, now we have another short player. We have another player who's about 5'7" and he's having success. How is Baez different? How is he the same? What kind of player is he? What should we be looking for? I mean, look, I've yet to see, I want to make this clear, I've yet to see a player who is slow, who is short, and who is good, who can survive at this level. I've yet to see that player. You could say like a Duty Sela or an Oliver Rokas, right? Not that either of them were slow, but they were not speedsters, right? But usually, Ferrer and Schwartzman were certainly elite court coverage, elite consistency, excellent mentality, and, just enough juice to be incredible baseliners. Oh, and great returns to make up for not having a really big, great serve. I don't think Baez is that, is kind of what I want to say. I don't think he's that. Baez is a reverse Daniil Medvedev. Whoa. I know your mind is twisting into all kinds of knots and pretzels right now. Hear me out. Daniil Medvedev and Alexander Zverev. Big guys who play small. Big guys who get the benefit of the big serve, but from a movement standpoint and the way they're able to grind and defend, they play small. Baez is the little guy who plays big. Baez's forehand is the biggest weapon on the court, often, from what I've seen. When I watch his matches, very often, I look at Baez's forehand. That is the biggest weapon on the court. And let's face it, with Schwartzman and Ferrer, usually when it came to offensive weapon, not attribute, speed is an attribute, consistency is an attribute, defense is an attribute, return, yeah, all that. Offensive weapon, generally they didn't have it. Ferrer's forehand, underrated. Never got enough respect. Excellent forehand. Baez's is bigger. It is bigger. He's got some real shot making to him. Now he has that quickness. Again, never seen anyone slow and short and good. Haven't seen it. He's got that quickness, but what I love about Baez is that he's kind of a little guy, so he benefits from the very nimble footwork, the tremendous quickness and the court coverage and the way he runs around his backhand, a fine forehands, I think only a player of his size could really do it that well. And short arms helps with that, by the way. But then he brings the power of a big guy. So that's what I'm seeing from Baez right now. And I know that's not, I'll have more to say about him shortly, and I'll have in-depth match analysis of him as he keeps winning. But I do want to leave it at that for now. And that is all I got for this episode of Monday Match Analysis. I don't know that there is that much in terms of housekeeping. Excuse me. It's another week. I'm pretty busy with work, so not going to be too many videos midweek. Just a heads up for that. If you're listening on the podcast platform, big time help if you leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. All right. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time.